Welcome to episode 630 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salsidoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or accounts of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams on Discord or if you listen to the podcast or YouTube feeds or on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of the show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. And as always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, for having me on the network and putting all my shows up there. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that in a few different ways. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can find books I've written of paranormal fiction and nonfiction over on Amazon, including my most recent book, which is connected to the podcast, Salsido Paranormal Experiences. You can also sign up for the Patreon page, where you can get 2 extra episodes every week, whenever possible, of true paranormal stories from the web. Or you can just make one-time donations through PayPal. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows, from equipment to research materials to travel expenses in some cases. And so, yeah, this has been great tonight so far, covering all these accounts of people's experiences, and then I'm ready to get back into more of them. So this first one says, I have had many paranormal experiences throughout my life, starting with seeing the man in the hat, so the Hat Man basically, when I was very young. About 4 years ago, my boyfriend and I moved to Georgia in the U.S. for his work transfer. We only stayed there for 3 months before moving to another town in the same state. My boyfriend went to this other town a week early and stayed in an old, rundown hotel. I arrived at the hotel around 1 a.m. after the 3.5-hour drive one night after work. That's a long day. My boyfriend went back to sleep, and I stayed up to watch TV. I was lying on the left side of the bed, facing the TV. I kept seeing movement in my peripheral vision in the dark hallway leading to the door. Suddenly, a translucent bluish-white head without a body appeared. It was about 6 feet off the ground. It floated across the entire room and disappeared into the wall. The head was clearly that of a man. I could make out the hairline and hair and ears, but the face was somewhat blurred. It appeared to have a small, old-fashioned man's ponytail. The eyes, nose, and mouth were visible, but not in complete detail. The head was looking straight ahead at the wall, not at me. It was visible for about 5 seconds. Immediately after the head disappeared into the wall, it felt like someone jumped onto the bed. The entire bed bounced. My boyfriend jerked awake, saying, "What the heck?" I wasn't frightened, but experienced an adrenaline rush. I couldn't go back to sleep for hours after all of that, though. And that's where that one ends. So, to me, what that seems like is there was, again, you have this floating apparition of a head. But what I'm wondering is, did that scare someone else into jumping onto the bed. And maybe someone else didn't even see the people that were there, the writer and their boyfriend, but somehow it still translated to their level of reality and made the bed shake. Of course, I have no idea, but that's where my mind goes. Is that one? It's a quote unquote ghost. One being scared another being into jumping onto the bed, and the two people that were here in this dimension or whatever, they had to just experience all that. And I don't know. It's just wild. It makes me wonder about that with hotels and buildings and just places in general. I mean, how do all these beings interact with each other? Are there ways where sometimes they are aware of each other, other times they're not? Are there and I just wonder about that because of that event there. I mean, I don't know for sure that the way I think of it is how it happened. I don't know for sure that one ghost scared another, using that word lightly because we don't really know what ghosts are for sure. I don't think they can be many things, but I just wonder about that. And you hear about that where some places that there's a lot of history of these two or three or more well-known apparitions. Sometimes they seem to be aware of each other, other times they don't. So I don't know, but I thought that was a really neat one there. Just in this sort of an explosion of activity that happened, and it started and ended not long after, not long after it started. It just was there and then gone, and I don't know. That's a wild one in a way because you think, oh well, the floating head is the story. That's going to be all that happened at that time anyway. And then you have that extra detail of someone appearing to jump onto the bed, luckily not on the people, just onto the bed, and it making a big enough impact where it shook the bed. So I don't know. That's a wild one there. I thought that was really amazing, just because of the questions that raised about what kind of interaction there is, not just with people with us here, but between beings and possibly between dimensions and other dimensions and energy levels and who knows. I thought that was a neat one to share. So moving on to the next one here. Let's see. This one says, I graduated from technical college with an associate's degree in precision machining. My job involves making things out of metal by cutting and drilling. The college campus had a machine shop for students to learn equipment operation. The building housing the machine shop was built in 1912, so that's over 100 years old now. The place, especially the machine shop, always had a creepy vibe. On a hot day in June, I was alone in the shop operating a milling machine. Suddenly, let me see. Oh, there you go. Suddenly, the air became cold, which was unusual, as the AC had been broken for decades. I sensed something wasn't right. I then saw a figure walking towards me from the corner of my eye. When I turned to look directly at it, I saw an 8-foot tall, 8-foot tall, pitch black figure. The figure was extremely thin, with long, skinny legs. It had no face. The figure was slowly walking towards me. The apparition quickly faded away after a split second. The experience left me with chills, and still does to this day. Later that day, I learned that a faculty member had passed away due to a heart attack in the machine shop about 20 years earlier. I wonder if the spirit of the deceased faculty member might have returned to finish whatever job they started back then. And that's where that one ends. It could be. We don't really know why shadows appear the way they do. Why shadow figures, what shadow figures are, what shadow figures are, if there's different reasons for them appearing the way they do. In other words, can you have three shadows that are next to each other and they all be different sort of beings in a way? One can be a spirit of a human. Another can be some other being from some other level of reality. Alien, if you want to call it that. And as I always say, alien just means unfamiliar, unknown. And then the other one could be some kind of cryptid. I mean, I've heard of that too before. Not so much talking about this specific case in that machine shop, but just cryptids like like Sasquatch or whatever, different ones like that, also being able to appear almost like just a giant shadow. So I don't know. It could be what the writer there said. Could have been something entirely different. I don't know. But sounds like quite the thing to see. 8 foot tall. That's up there. So, but again, I wonder if there's some kind of distortion in the way things appear here, depending on different energies and how all that works. And I don't know. So yeah, neat one there. And I wonder if anyone else ever saw anything similar before or after. But of course, that's not something that everyone is going to want to talk about, even if they did. So, moving on to the next one here. Let's see. Okay, so this one says, oh wait, I lost it. Okay. Oh, that's what it was. It was a page break. This one says, I went for a walk in the evening. I saw someone standing still ahead of me, apparently waiting for something or someone. This person was reading a large item that wasn't a book or magazine. When the person saw me approaching, they threw the item away and started walking forward. As they got closer, I saw that it was an elderly gentleman. The man was carrying a shepherd's crook with a few bands on it. The man looked at me and asked, "Out for an evening stroll?" I replied, "Yeah, I am. Are you?" The elderly man repeated the same question. "Out for an evening stroll?" He smiled and again said, "Out for an evening stroll?" The man then walked away. I had a strong feeling that this man didn't seem human. When I turned to watch the man leave, he disappeared like a glimmer in the distance. 2 hours after the encounter, I am still thinking about the interaction. I felt that it wasn't a typical encounter. And that's where that one ends. So, what was going on there? If they hadn't vanished, then you might just be able to say it was just someone acting weird, or I don't know, dealing with some kind of altered mind state of some kind. But the way they acted, and they said the same thing over and over again, it makes me wonder if that was like, if this was some other being, was that the only thing that they had learned, or one of the only things they had learned in whatever language this was, in this region. But yeah, and then of course there is that as well. The residual, Ricky in chat says, residual possible person who had died on a walk, and that seems possible as well. But the thing that gets me is the repeating of that same phrase and it was the same phrase repeated, but it wasn't like it was the same. Wasn't the same movements repeated. So, but yeah, it could have been residual. I don't know. It's just odd. I wonder about the writer said that didn't feel like it was a regular person, and I wonder, or even a person. And I wonder what else would it have been then. And who knows? But I thought that was just a really odd account there. And what was the object they were reading, and where did it go? I wonder if the writer there would have like thought to check the bushes or whatever on the side of the sidewalk there. Would they have found anything or not? So a lot of questions in that one, even more so than just a sort of a standard ghost encounter or whatever. Yeah, I don't know about that one. That one makes me feel like some other being, but again, I have no idea. Moving on to the next one here. And but yeah, repeating that same thing over and over again like that was just that one is weird. It says this happened at some point. This one says at some point during 2010 to 2011 in my family's home. My 10-year-old brother D, and again I don't use full names in these shows just for privacy reasons, was the only other person with me in the house at the time. I was playing a video game in the dining room, computer room, drinking pop from our mom's favorite vintage glass. I accidentally dropped the glass, and it broke. My mother had a terrible temper. Dee suggested cleaning the house to lessen our mom's anger. I agreed, since I was the one that would be in the most trouble. I asked Dee to clean the small bathroom, and I tackled the dining room where the glass had broken. It's important at this point to describe the layout of the house. The front door opens into the dining room. There is another room to the left, and the computer room to the right. The kitchen was straight ahead. The bathroom was in the kitchen to the left. There were stairs to the second floor in the front room, around the corner. While cleaning, I heard running, from the kitchen. I then saw what appeared to be Dee run by and up the stairs. I even heard footsteps all the way up. I called out to Dee, asking why he wasn't cleaning. Dee responded from the bathroom, saying he was cleaning. My heart dropped, knowing that no one else was home. I asked Dee if he heard the footsteps, and he said he had, but he thought it was me. Of course, I hadn't left the dining room. We carefully went upstairs together. I brought a kitchen knife with me. We searched all 3 rooms and closets, but didn't find anyone upstairs. What I saw looked exactly like Dee, but it wasn't him. But then, what was it that I saw? And that's where that one ends. I don't know, some kind of a residual, again, possibly residual energy of that particular boy running through the house, maybe, from another time, maybe even some kind of weird time loop. And I don't know. It's yeah. DG, you're right. I actually in the chat, she's mentioning a particular kind of a glass, probably an 80s vintage glass now. Yeah. But the I wonder if it's some kind of time loop where it actually was the brother. And yeah, I don't know. Mom's anger getting home before her, retro causality kind of thing. Yeah, I have no idea. But so it could have been the brother from a different time. Could have been some kind of, I don't know, almost like maybe manifestation of the fear as well. Like, let's get out of here, even though they couldn't. So this energy ran upstairs somehow. I wonder about that. But yeah, I don't know. And as the timing is odd, I wonder. And of course, there's no way to know this. If the writer there hadn't broken that glass, and they were all they and their brother were still just in the house and nothing had happened, would that apparition and those sounds still have happened at that same time? So of course, there's no way to know that. But yeah, neat one there. And I wonder about the history of the house and if anything else ever happened there, because sometimes you hear that nothing else ever happened here before this or after this. Other times it's just one item in a string of things that happen in a location. So we'll get through one more here for this episode, and then we'll stop. This one says, we recently knocked down a wall in our house. Since then, some strange things have happened. The heater in the bathroom fan, turned on unexpectedly 3 different times. I was the only one home for 2 of these incidents. But the weather has been hot and humid lately, as it is summer time here. I am certain I did not turn on or leave the fan on. I have been even more careful than before lately about making sure the fan and heater are off when I leave the bathroom. Also, I have a touch-activated lamp in my bedroom that flickers occasionally, when it never did before. The plug is working fine, and it is fully inserted into the wall socket. Even though I don't feel like any of this is meant to be negative, I would still like to know why this is all happening and who is behind it. I've tried a few apps on mobile devices, but they didn't seem to work, and that's where that one ends. I'm guessing they mean the various sort of ghost hunting, sort of random word generating apps that you can find on phones these days, and tablets these days, that supposedly generate words based on whatever spirits are giving off when they're nearby. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews of those as well, so I don't know. And I've heard that they work, so who knows? But I don't know. It does seem to be all electrical in nature, which of course then you might be able to write that off. But then I think you always have to consider the other possibility of it being something else as well. And so I don't know what the meaning there is, or if there is a meaning, or if it's just weird energy traveling around the house in weird ways at different times. So I don't know with that one, but I've heard similar things, similar accounts, and read similar accounts before of objects and electronics acting in weird ways for no apparent reason. So it's not the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. But yeah, so neat one there. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsidoparanormal. Take care.